It's Wednesday, 12th of March, and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Peace talks. Ukraine accepts 30-day ceasefire proposal, awaits Russia's response. Arctic politics. Greenland's pro-business party wins amid Trump's island control pledge. Ocean innovation. Fishermen use tech to speak dolphin, aim to cut deadly bycatch.
From Colombo, this is World News Tonight with Prashansa Gunawardana.
Good evening once again. We are starting today's bulletin with news coming from the war in Ukraine. Ukraine has agreed to a 30-day ceasefire proposal put forward by the United States during talks in Saudi Arabia, with the Secretary of State Marco Rubio stating that the offer will now be presented to Russia. Now, to get the latest on the story, we have our other Derana World News special correspondent, Minoli Zagaria, who is joining us from Kursk, Russia. Over to you, Minoli.
Yes, Prashansa. For the first time since the public fallout between US President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, officials from both countries have come together in Jeddah to reunite a path toward peace. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the two delegations agreed on a 30-day ceasefire plan and are ready to begin immediate negotiations for a long-term peace deal that ensures Ukrainian security. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky called the proposal a positive step and urged Washington to convince Russia to accept the terms. In a video address, he said Russia now has to show its willingness to stop the war or continue it. It is time for the full truth. The US also announced it would restart intelligence sharing and resume suspended military aid to Ukraine, a decision that comes after weeks of tensions within the transatlantic alliance. The Kremlin has not yet formally responded to the offer, but senior Russian lawmakers signaled a tougher stance, saying peace can come only on Russia's terms. President Trump, speaking from the White House, expressed cautious optimism, saying he would speak directly to Russian President Vladimir Putin, hoping the deal can be finalized soon. Whether Russia accepts the proposal remains to be seen, but after months of diplomatic deadlock, there may be now renewed momentum toward ending the war. Back to you, Prashansa.
Thank you, Minoli. That was our other Derana World News special correspondent, Minoli Zagaria, who joined us from Kursk, Russia. President Donald Trump's 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium imports came into force, triggering an immediate reprisal from the European Union as the global trade war enters a new and perilous phase.
Donald Trump's tariffs on imports of metals took effect Wednesday. They imposed 25% duties on shipments of steel and aluminium, with no countries excepted. The tariffs also hit hundreds of products made from the metals, from nuts and bolts to bulldozer blades and soda cans. Within hours, the EU fired back with $28 billion in reciprocal duties. Those tariffs will kick in from the start of next month. Canada is also mulling how to respond to the latest moves. Speaking Tuesday in Houston, Texas, Energy Minister Jonathan Wilkinson said Canada could limit sales of oil to the US. Canada is the largest supplier of imported oil to the US, shipping some 4 million barrels per day. Wilkinson says a levy on US ethanol is another option being considered. Other countries facing a significant hit from the Trump tariffs include Brazil, Mexico and South Korea. However, the new charges have been welcomed by a US Steel Industry Association, which said the measures would supercharge domestic production. Investors are less sure, with US stocks shedding more than $4 trillion in value over recent weeks amid concerns about the trade war.
Australia has ruled out imposing reciprocal tariffs on the United States. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese confirmed following President Donald Trump's decision to proceed with steel and aluminium tariffs without exemptions for any country.
US President Donald Trump's administration has announced it will go ahead with imposing 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminium imports, with no country, including close allies like Australia, granted an exemption. This decision reverses earlier signals from Trump, who in February hinted he would give great consideration to exempting Australia, citing the US's trade surplus with the country. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese strongly criticised the move, calling it entirely unjustified and against the spirit of our two nations' enduring friendship. He added that while retaliatory tariffs could be considered, such a move would only increase inflation and hurt Australian consumers. While the tariffs may not account for a large share of Australia's exports, experts say the broader economic impact could be significant. Despite the pressure, Albanese reiterated that Australia's steel and aluminium export to the US represent less than 0.2% of total exports and are not among the country's top 10 US export items. Still, Australia, a key Indo-Pacific ally, continues to press Washington for a reprieve. But with tariffs set to take effect immediately, the economic fallout may be difficult to avoid.
Heading over to neighbouring Pakistan. Pakistani forces have rescued 155 passengers from a hijacked train in Balochistan, but dozens remain in captivity after separatist militants derailed the train and opened fire. The attack took place yesterday when the Qatar to Peshawar train was reportedly derailed and trapped inside a tunnel. Militants opened fire, killing the train's driver and taking over the train. Under heavy security, the rescued passengers were brought to Quetta, where tearful reunions took place at the railway station. But for many families, the wait continues. Dozens of passengers are still unaccounted for. The BLA claims to have taken 214 hostages, including security personnel, and has issued a 48-hour ultimatum demanding the release of Baloch political prisoners and individuals allegedly abducted by the military. The group has threatened to execute hostages if their demands are not met. Authorities estimate that 425 passengers were on board at the time of the attack. Officials say militants are threatening to destroy the train entirely if operations continue. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif condemned the attack, assuring the nation that security forces are working relentlessly to end the crisis. The Balochistan government has now declared a state of emergency and deployed additional forces to the area. Indonesia's central bank has enlisted Muslim clerics in West Java to help curb inflation during Ramadan, delivering sermons on the importance of price stability as part of an effort to manage soaring costs during the holy month.
It's common to see people gather around to listen to Islamic clerics during the holy month of Ramadan in Indonesia. But this isn't a sermon, it's a forum to talk about inflation. Ramadan sees surges in demand for food as people prepare feasts for after the sun sets. There's also a spike in demand for clothes for the Eid al-Fitr festival at the end of the month. All that rush to buy can spark price hikes, and businesses sometimes hike prices in anticipation too. The remote town of Majalengka is no different. Central bank officials were leading the sermon, part of Bank Indonesia's strategy to have clerics preach against Ramadan overconsumption. The hope is that clerics, influential in far-flung towns like this, can help effectively spread the message. The central bank has tried a number of unconventional programs. They've hosted podcasts on spending, brought in religious leaders to get through farmers, and helped build this greenhouse for students to grow Chinese cabbage and water spinach. The bank wants to foster entrepreneurship and possibly improve the local food supply. Inflation once ran hot in Indonesia, Southeast Asia's largest economy, but in 2024, it was 1.57%, near the lower end of the central bank's target range. It fell even further in the months leading to this year's Ramadan, thanks to electricity subsidies. And economists predict it will stay on target in the months ahead.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. Portugal's centre-right minority government has collapsed after losing a confidence vote in parliament, paving the way for what could be the country's third early general election in just 3 years.
Portuguese Prime Minister Luís Montenegro's centre-right minority government fell on Tuesday after losing a confidence vote in parliament. Lawmakers voted 142 to 88 with 0 abstentions against the motion. It comes after only 11 months in office and is likely to trigger an early election, the country's third in just over 3 years. The motion was presented last week after the opposition questioned Montenegro's integrity over the dealings of a consultancy firm he founded and is now run by his sons. He has denied wrongdoing or any ethical shortcomings by the firm, which has contracts with private companies. His administration now assumes a caretaker role. It will be up to President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa whether to call a new parliamentary election. He has said a new ballot could be held in mid-May. While analysts say an early ballot is all but inevitable, they see no strong mandate for any political force emerging from it.
Greenland's pro-business opposition party, which favours a slow approach to independence from Denmark, won yesterday's parliamentary election that was dominated by US President Donald Trump's pledge to take control of the island.
A historic Democratic Party win in the Arctic island election that's been thrust into the global spotlight. Greenland, with a population of just 57,000, took to the polls overnight after a campaign that was largely overshadowed by a leader from afar.
But we need it really for international world security, and I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it.
As a former real estate mogul, Donald Trump knows all too well the importance of location, and that's precisely what's drawn him to the vast, mineral-rich and strategically placed island between the US and Europe. Greenland is a self-governed territory of Denmark, but calls for full independence have been growing for years, this election heightening that debate while turning into a race as to which Greenlandic leader would come up against Trump's pledge to take control. In the early hours, the preliminary results were in, with the centre-right Democratic Party coming out on top. A party in favour of independence, but with a slower approach. With Greenland so vast it could take weeks before these results are certified as paper ballots roll in from remote settlements by boat, plane and helicopter. But for now, the celebrations continue as the world watches to see what happens next.
Over to Syria now. According to a statement from the country's presidency, a Kurdish-led militia alliance that controls northeastern Syria has signed an agreement to integrate its military and civilian institutions into the Syrian state.
Syria's new government signed a deal with the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces to merge forces. That's according to the Syrian presidency Monday, releasing video showing interim Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara and SDF commander Mazloum Abdi signing the deal. It's a major step in Shara's goal to unite Syria, which had seen 14 years of conflict and the collapse of Bashar al-Assad's regime in December. The agreement included a complete end of hostilities and for SDF-controlled civilian and military institutions, which include an airport, oil and gas fields, to become part of the Damascus administration. In the northeastern city of Komishlu, there were celebrations after the deal. Cars full of cheering people cruised through the streets in early Tuesday. The US-backed SDF has been in conflict with Turkey-backed armed groups in northern Syria for years. That conflict has rumbled on since Assad was toppled. There was no immediate comment on the deal from Turkey, which is a close ally of Shara. Analysts say SDF leaders see Monday's agreement as a hedge against the risk of the Trump administration suddenly withdrawing US forces, which have helped SDF counter the Islamic State in Syria for a decade. The accord came at another critical moment. Syrian authorities face an insurgency in the coastal region of western Syria by loyalist remnants of Assad's regime. Violence has spiraled in the past week, and there were reports of large numbers of civilians of Assad's Alawite sect killed in sectarian reprisals. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Sunday condemned the killings. In an interview Monday, Shara said mass killings of Alawites were a threat to his mission to unite Syria. He promised to punish those responsible, including his own allies, if necessary.
Now for an update on the hostage situation in Gaza. The United Nations says Israel's decision to cut off electricity to Gaza is very concerning, warning that civilians in the war-ravaged territory will face dire consequences.
A week after blocking the entry of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip, Israel has cut the only power line supplying electricity to the Palestinian enclave. Gazans have been relying on solar panels and fuel-powered generators to produce electricity, although diesel is also in short supply. This high-voltage power line also supplied electricity to the main water desalination plant, essential for more than 600,000 Gazans. The shutoff comes as Israel seeks to increase pressure on Hamas just before the scheduled start of renewed peace negotiations in Doha.
I have signed now a decree halting electricity to the Gaza Strip with immediate effect. We will use all of our tools we have so that the hostages will be returned, and we will make sure that Hamas won't be in Gaza any longer.
Talks have not yet taken place for the second phase of the ceasefire deal, which was due to begin in March. This would mean a permanent end to fighting, the complete withdrawal of Israeli troops from the enclave, and the release of all remaining hostages. Instead, an option floated by American mediators is for Hamas to accept an extension of the first phase until mid-April, the complete demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, and the return of half of the remaining hostages before continuing talks. Hamas has described the cuts to electricity and aid as blackmail and starvation policy, insisting on an immediate start to negotiations.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. A delightful new arrival is turning heads at Chester Zoo. A baby dancer lemur recently spotted with its mother. The charming sight has captured the hearts of visitors, offering a playful glimpse into the endearing world of this rare and energetic species.
In the United Kingdom, Chester Zoo is celebrating the birth of a rare Cockerell's cephaka, a species of lemur commonly known as a dancing lemur. The lemur was born on January 20th, with the zoo saying every new birth is a huge cause for celebration. According to the zoo, the dancing lemurs get their nickname as they can stand upright and spring from side to side as if they are dancing. The Cockerell cephakas are the endangered species and can only be found in northwestern forests of Madagascar.
For the first time ever, fishermen in the Bay of Biscay are testing new high-tech fishing gear that speak dolphin language to warn them of danger. The aim: reduce bycatch after tens of thousands of dolphins drowned in fishing nets in recent years.
Romain Wallet is gearing up to return to sea. He's been stuck on land for a month due to a fishing ban to protect dolphins. For this father of three, the fishing ban is unfair. With his 10 nets, each around 500 meters long, Romain says he only caught one dolphin in the past 5 years, and he suspects it was already dead when it ended up in his net. A huge difference from his neighbor's nets. The bottom trawler uses thicker, funnel-shaped nets. Dolphins caught in these are sure to die. Western France is a dolphin mass grave, according to activists. Up to 10,000 marine mammals were accidentally killed annually until last year, when authorities imposed a temporary fishing ban. Across France's Atlantic coast, more than 300 boats were forbidden to sail from mid-January to mid-February. A lifeline for dolphins, but a crisis for sailors. So how can France protect marine life and keep fishers afloat? To achieve this, scientists recorded audio from real dolphins. It's the first time their own language is used to warn them of danger. A technological challenge. Communicating with dolphins might help reduce stress and noise pollution. In December alone, more than 300 carcasses were found in the Bay of Biscay. By the end of the fishing ban, none. Sea Shepherd wants to extend restrictions until marine life recovers. But for the fishermen, that's out of the question. The ban is too costly.
Quick quick-thinking 9-year-old Jason Branch sprang into action on the basketball court, saving his 7-year-old classmate Danye Moore for choking on a granola bar at Raleigh Oak Charter Elementary.
The playground, where many good childhood friendships begin. For Raleigh Oak Charter Academy students Jason Branch and Danye Moore, their bond grew even stronger during recess on the basketball court.
So last week, we were playing basketball and he ate a granola bar, and then we started playing longer until he started choking.
The unbelievable moment captured on school surveillance video. You can see Danye in the dark-colored shirt begin to bend over, struggling to breathe. Jason in white noticed immediately and came to his rescue, squeezing his abdomen to expel the food.
He was trying to say hold on, but he couldn't because he was choking. I didn't know he was actually choking, so I just did my thing, which was a Heimlich.
The 9-year-old did do his thing. He performed a life-saving technique without hesitation.
I learned that from YouTube.
The observant, quick learner became an instant hero in the eyes of his friend. A sigh of relief, and now the parents coming together, watching the video back for the first time, still in disbelief. And while Danye is a 7-year-old with very brief words, he lights up playing with his buddy once again. The beginning of a beautiful friendship that'll last a lifetime.
Well, that's a wrap from all of us here at World News Tonight. Stay tuned as Anuradha Wickramasinghe will be joining you with a nightly business report. I'm Prashansa Gunawardana, and we leave you with stunning visuals of Edward Munch's captivating portraits, now on display at a new exhibition in London. Thank you for watching us. Have a good night.